Good evening, everybody. My name is Philip. Can everybody hear me? Is this? Oh, yeah. Good. Well, like Fahmi said, I'm supposed to do a little bit the lighter version of culture, and I started with the definition of culture, and because it's a little bit long, I kind of made it into a Instagram thing. The important things what I'm going to talk about is the second point, the characteristic features of everyday existence shared by people in a place or time. Now, what always surprises me is that there's a lot of things around us, and for some reason we always think that they have always been there. But everything around us, who we are, how we became what we are, is basically a very slow process. And in the whole, I mean, at the end, when like, for example, we accept everything as natural, we forget that there was the whole part before. So my 8 minutes will be about stories, about the origin of things. And to start with that, the name of my company is called Polyphemus. Here you see it phonetically written. So, and I choose that name because Polyphemus was the name of one of the Cyclops. And I don't know if you know, but the Cyclops was a race of giants with one eye. Now, we all know it's mythological, but for the Greeks, it wasn't, because they had found proof that these people actually existed. So one of the chief in ancient Greek archaeologists dug up a skeleton, put it together. They all went to stand on a tower and they said, ta-da, this is a giant. What they didn't know is that they actually got the skeleton of a pygmy elephant. But because they were not aware of elephants, they kind of put it together, and it kind of looks a little bit like a human. It kind of looks a little bit like this. So for them, there was no doubt that Cyclops existed. They had proof. So here you see the two things together, the elephant skull and the thing. Well, the point is that a lot of things might be true, or we believe them, and at a certain point there is new evidence coming which changes it. And it's with everything like that. With everything we do, we can believe something, and then there comes a point that somebody says, hey, it's not true, or hey, it's actually different, and then we change it. And that's the way how our habits and all the things from day to day become our culture. Now, there's another one, and you can guess what this is. What is Disney made a movie about it. No, nobody has any idea. This is the inspiration of the mermaids. So yeah, according to seafarers in the 14th, 15th century, when they were like for months on sea, and all of a sudden they were approaching a coast, and they saw these dugongs. Actually, it's also called a sea cow. They saw them in the water. And for them, they were like beautiful creatures, half woman, half fish. There's actually descriptions of their arms being like a soft woman's arm. I mean, anyway, that's the whole story. So the sailors came back. They told the stories of seeing these most beautiful half fish, half woman creatures. And like that, the story continued. And before we knew it, we had a German guy called Grimm talking about the little sea mermaid. We kind of twisted it a little bit. Ariel looks slightly different than this one. And we made a movie about it. Just the point is that everything has an origin. I started with these two things, which are, because they're both mythological creatures. And as such, they come from a time when there was nothing else than storytelling. There were no mass media, there was nothing. So if you wanted some information, you should ask it to, or somebody would tell a story, you would listen, and etc., etc. And like that, these things became common knowledge. And at the end, you don't question anymore whether a sea merman or a cyclops exists. It became part of the culture. But there is a lot of other things in our daily life which basically work on the same principles. And although we think of things changing a lot, actually they don't really. You know, like, I mean, when they when they invented the first car, basically what they did is they solved an ecological problem what they had with carriages. So you had the carriage with the horses, and so somebody invented an engine, and they actually put some kind of an engine instead of the horse, and besides that, everything is the same. So there's not such a big change as if you would think. Well, for them at that time, it was the car was portrayed as being a ecological solution because horses polluted way too much. Anyway, yeah, now it's kind of changed. This is another interesting one. I mean, like we all heard about reggae and the hairstyle which goes with it. But reggae got invented in the 1930s. Actually, the religion got famous in an island called Jamaica, and the whole principle was that when the first black king would be crowned on Mount Zion in Ethiopia, the people would return to the promised land. So at a certain moment, Haile Selassie is crowned as the first black king, so everybody was waiting for a sign. And funny enough, they were looking for a sign in the newspaper, and there was an article about Ethiopian workers, and Rastas, or dreadlocks, was the way how they kind of traditionally put their hair. So everybody saw it as a sign, and everybody started to wear dreads. And now we cannot, you know, like think of dreads being separated from reggae. That's another one. Then there is, this is an interesting one as well. This is about fashion. We refer to models as mannequins. Mannequins are these models walking on the catwalk, and also the full-size dolls which you see in the shop. Actually, again, there is a history. In the 15th century, the designers started to use little dolls, and on the little dolls they made the designs. And then the little dolls were sent to the potential clients, and if they would like it, they would send their sizes, it would come back, and then the dress would be made. Now, that doll in French is called a mannequin, and the word mannequin comes from a Dutch word, which means little man. Mannequin. I don't know if anybody ever been in Belgium, but I'm from Belgium, and our national symbol is manneke pis, which is basically a little boy, a statue, peeing. It's our national symbol. You can look it up. But anyway, it's the same manneke, and that's where mannequin comes from. Okay. Sorry? 8 minutes. Okay, fine. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. Which one do we do? It's the last one. Okay, I'm quicker. Good. One of the things I wanted to come to my conclusion. Basically, when you have, with mass media and everything, we got used to the fact that there's one source which gives us all the information. Later, like now, we basically make all our own stories, but the problem is that we don't really check our sources anymore, and we don't know where that information comes from. Now, everybody kind of makes its own story. And that story is called the suspension of disbelief. Now, suspension of disbelief basically means that you know something is not true, but it sounds too good to be true. That's it. Let me conclude to one thing which I kind of forgot. I mean, like, as what I've tried to show with these examples is that everything has an history, and everything comes from something. So if you want to kind of understand where you're going through, it's very good to understand where you come from. And within culture, it is very important, like, to kind of know your history. And there's no better place, and there's no better storytelling place as a museum, a national museum, any type of other museum, because it tells you the links of your past to understand that you became who you are, and most probably is the best way to kind of show you where you're going to. So, hail all museums. Thank you.